Happy Monday, first graders. Today we're going to read a story called The Lion Inside, about a tiny brown mouse who goes on a journey to find his inner lion. And our goal for reading this story is going to be to retell two parts of the story. First, retelling the setting, or where our story takes place, and then retelling the characters, or who is in our story. Let's start reading. The Lion Inside by Rachel Bright and Jim Field. A dry, dusty place where the sand sparkled gold stood a mighty flat rock, all craggy and old. And under that rock, in a tiny full house, lived the littlest, quietest, meekest brown mouse. He was so very tiny, so incredibly small, that nobody noticed him, ever, at all. He got stepped on and sat on. He missed out on stuff. Ignored and forgotten, his mouse's life was rough. Meanwhile, far above, on top of the rock, times were quite different. It was Lion o'clock. This huge, toothy creature made sure everyone saw how important he was by how loud he could. Say it for me. He was head of the pack. He was shouty and proud. He loved flexing his biceps and wowing the crowd. Yes, all were impressed by this mighty king cat. If only, thought Mouse, I could be more like that. Then, late one dark night, in his tiny mouse bed, the cleverest thought popped into his head. He leaped up into the darkness and held up a paw. I've got it, he said. What I need is a roar. I mean, what if this mouse, with the weeniest squeak, were a little more grrr and a little less meek? Well, he'd still be the smallest of fuzzy brown mice, but he'd make friends and join in, and life would be nice. Yes, thought the mouse, I must find out how. I will learn how to roar, and I will learn it now. But it wouldn't be easy. There was only one beast who could teach him this thing, but might make him a feast. It was time to be strong, take a chance after all. Forever was such a long time to feel small. So he made himself brave, and he thought like a winner. He set off for the top, hoping not to be dinner. It felt like the scariest thing he could do. But if you want things to change, first you have to change you. The farther he climbed, the closer he got to the slumbering lion reclining on top. Then, at last, as he stood on his tippy toes, he found himself suddenly nose to nose. Gulp. Mr. Lion, you've got company. Squeak, Mr. Lion. What I've come to you for is Squeak. Do you think you could teach me a roar? A silence befell that twinkling plain. Lion opened his eyes and puffed out his mane. Time went so slowly, it felt like a week. Then he opened his mouth and let out an eek. The lion curled up in a terrified ball. He didn't like this, not one bit at all. Don't hurt me, he whimpered. Oh, try to be nice. Well, this mighty gray lion was frightened of mice. Don't worry, Mouse peeped. I'm here as a friend. Let's hang out together and be pals to the end. That was a magical moment, for sure, when the mouse didn't feel at all small anymore. He had found his true voice and learned to speak out, and for that, you don't need to roar or to shout. And from that day and always, the two were a pair. They both liked the rock better, now that the rock was to share. The mouse, while still little, felt big in his head, and Lion, he still roared, but with laughter instead. Yes, that day they both learned that no matter your size, we all have a mouse and a lion inside. All right, friends, so let's check back in on our goal for reading this story. Remember, we wanted to find the setting and the characters. Now, the author snuck in the setting really, really quick. He told us what the setting was on one of the pages, but in case you missed it, oftentimes authors don't do this, and instead they describe the setting with their words, or the illustrator illustrates the setting. And I think the author and illustrator could do a really good job at that on this page here. The author says, "A dry, dusty place where the sand sparkled gold." And the illustrator drew a beautiful picture with some tall burnt grass in the front, a big sandy area in the back, some rocks. We have an okapi, a zebra, and the lion sleeping on top of the rocks. And the first thing I thought of this was, I thought it reminded me of the Lion King. So go ahead and pause this video, discuss with the loved one you're reading with, what is the setting of this story? There's a few different words we could use to describe this setting. I'm interested to know, how would you describe the setting of this story? So go ahead and pause the video, talk about it with your loved one, and press play when you're ready to share. Okay, friends, so before I give my word for describing this setting, let's see how the author describes it. Right after the mouse and lion met and he let out an eek, the author said, "A silence befell that twinkling plain." So the author tells us the story is a plain. Now the word that I use, because we learned this word in our habitats unit during science, is the savanna. So you could have said plain, you could have said savanna, you could have seen it was really dry and sandy and maybe said the desert. Maybe you knew that all wild lions live in Africa, so maybe you said Africa. There's a few different words you could have used to describe the setting, but I chose the savanna. And when you're retelling your story in writing, you want to make sure you use a complete sentence. So I'm going to say the setting of The Lion Inside is the savanna. All capital letters here because it's my title. Okay, now let's move to the characters in our story. Now if we look at this picture, this illustration shows, let's count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different animals that are in our story, that are in the setting of the savannah. But when you're retelling a story, remember, we want to give the person we're retelling the story to the most important pieces of the story. Now, not all of these animals have a part in the story. So when we retell a story, we want to talk about the most important characters or the main characters of the story. So go ahead and pause the video, share with the loved one you're reading with who you think we should put down as the main characters of The Lion Inside. And then press play when you're ready to share. Okay, welcome back, friends. I'm not expecting too many different answers here because we only have 2 characters in the whole story who are doing any speaking or any actions at all in the whole story. And that is our lion and that's our mouse. So our 2 main characters in this story are the lion and the mouse. They don't have any names in the story. The author just called them lion and mouse. So again, I want to make sure I use a complete sentence. The characters in the Lion Inside are lion The characters in The Lion and the Mouse are, or no, the characters in The Lion Inside are the lion and the mouse. So friends, make sure you click on the Seesaw link to share your learning with your teachers. If you are in 1A, I'm excited to be teaching you ELA for the rest of the week. We're going to read 2 more stories this week, and tomorrow we're going to practice retelling the order of events in a story.